Oh, you're making me give it. Oh, baby, I can feel the rush of adrenaline. I'm not scared to jump if you want to. Let's just fall in love for the hell of it. Baby, just keep falling. I can feel the rush of adrenaline. I'm not scared to jump 'cause I want you. Let's just fall in love for the hell of it. Baby, we just keep falling.
Hey guys, it's the Anime Titan here, and today I will be making What If Deku Had a Evil Shadow Dragon Quirk. But first off, I want to say hi, I'm a new YouTuber, and I would like to spend my time by enjoying myself with you guys, because I myself am a major anime fan and love watching these in general. So let's start off. So we're gonna start when Deku is about 4 years old. Deku would be running into his mother's room and out of nowhere jumping on the bed, shouting, Mom, today's the day, we're gonna go check for my quirk. And his mom would wearily get up, slowly and tired, and tell him to go get ready. Izuku would quickly rush off to his room, get ready, and then go brush his teeth and have breakfast. His mom and him would be heading to the quirk doctor, and then when they would get there, they would sit in the waiting room. When they would be called in, Izuku would get tested for his quirk, and no, this won't be the quirk theft son of a bitch from, what's his name, All For One? I think it's All For One. Yeah, like, it won't be that asshole who literally just steals the quirks for All For One. No, we're gonna give him a proper quirk doctor, and the quirk doctor would be testing Izuku, and would come back with the results telling them that he indeed does have a quirk, but it's not as expected. The quirk doctor would say, Miss Midoriya, your son has a quirk, but it's not what expected. The quirk is a shadow quirk, but it's sentient. It's alive. It knows what it's doing, and I'm sorry to say, but the quirk, it does not want to be a hero. It's a darkened soul. And Inko would reply, but can't we change that? I mean, over time, things can change, right? And the quirk doctor would say, probably, but you'll have to be careful. The quirk itself is unstable. It does not listen to anybody. It's dangerous. She would reply with, okay, and tell Izuku to be careful when using his quirk. So, then she'd be taking Izuku back to his school, where, Bakugo would immediately run up to Izuku and say like, hey, Izuku, what's your quirk? And Izuku would reply with, it's a shadow dragon quirk. And Bakugo would go on telling Izuku, show me, I want to see. Show me, Deku. And Izuku would say that he can't because he can't control it. His quirk has a mind of its own. He can only control the shadows, but he can't control the dragon aspect of it. Because basically what his quirk is, it's a dragon made completely and utterly out of shadows that constantly swirls around on Izuku's body. If you guys have ever seen Moana, you know how Maui's little tattoo version of himself can jump all over his body and shift parts. Think of that, only that this dragon moves across Izuku's body as he pleases, and if need be, the dragon will detach itself from Izuku to protect its host. But the dragon does not like other people. It's villainous, it's dark and twisted. So Bakugo would keep insisting on Deku telling him, and this would go on for a whole month before Izuku would get slightly irritated. And this is when out of nowhere the dragon would just shoot off of his arm and attack Bakugo. Bakugo would try to defend himself with his tiny sparks that would be explosions, but it doesn't help. The dragon viciously slaps Bakugo to the side and roars. Izuku, scared, tells the dragon, no, stop! The dragon immediately looks at Izuku and then returns to him. The teachers rush out after the massive commotion and see Bakugo with an injured arm. They look at Izuku and ask what happened. Out of nowhere, a bunch of kids show up and say, Izuku attacked Bakugo. And Izuku would wearily say, it's not my fault, I couldn't control my quirk. It's dangerous. I told him, but he didn't listen. The teachers would look down at Izuku as if he's a villain and would call his mom and Bakugo's mom. The Deku's mom would show up and then just ask what happened. The teachers would explain, and Inko would look at Deku in a different light, as if he's a villain. He wanted this to happen. That's what she's thinking, but it's not. Izuku can't control his quirk. Inko was told this. The dragon has a mind of its own. So she would take Izuku back home and tell him, pack your stuff. You're not going to be living with me anymore. Izuku would be confused but do as she say. She would then take Izuku off and drop him at an orphanage. Izuku would be devastated, but he would accept it because he can't control his quirk. His dragon's uncontrollable. So Izuku would still be going to the same school as in canon, but this time his life would be much more different. He'd be looked down upon and he'd be lonely. He'd be sad and depressed. He'd be an introvert, not speaking to anybody other than the dragon, which has gained enough sentience to speak to him. Izuku would be getting along with the dragon quite well and would avoid other people 90% of the time. The only time him speaking to people was when he's going to the shop. So we skip to when Izuku's in high school. Bakugo hasn't messed with Izuku since the day that he got smacked around by the dragon. Bakugo left Izuku be, and so did everybody else in the class, because they heard from Bakugo that Izuku's a complete monster, and his quirk is villainous. Everybody would look at Deku with glares of hatred and disgust. But Izuku wouldn't let that get him down. He would try his best to still become a hero, but the dragon would be influencing him, telling him, come on, just forget about them. There's a better life in villainy. It's more fun. Izuku would slowly but steadily start listening to the dragon, committing small felonies like pickpocketing people here and there, and then just running. He found it a rush, but he didn't like what he was doing. Eventually he subsided, and the dragon had twisted Izuku far enough for him to become a villain. So basically, at this point, Izuku, he started hurting people. He started robberies and stuff. But he does that at night usually. Bakugo would still go to UA, but it would be a complete different story for Izuku. He'd be walking around, because the orphanage had kicked him out at this point, so he'd be wandering around, just looking for a place to live, when he'd come across an abandoned warehouse. Nobody would know who used to work there, but Izuku would find comfort in the darkness of this place. He'd enjoy it, being alone in the dark, the shadows just bending to his every will. Izuku would start cleaning the place, and he would make it a living. He turned it into a small house, and would daily go out and just do small crimes, so that he could survive, seeing as no hero would come to help him. He would continue on this for the next 10 months, the 10 months of training for UA, but he would have found somebody by this time, this person being Himiko Toga, another outsider left alone by the outside society because of her quirk. She needs blood to be able to mimic to replicate somebody like a clone, but her turning into it, so basically shapeshifting with blood. He would have found her just being looked down upon and beaten, but he would have stepped in, his dragon roaring to life, protecting this girl. Izuku had now gained most control over the dragon, but he would still be a villain. The dragon would listen to Izuku, but it still had a mind of its own. So if anybody were to attack Izuku, the dragon would step in and rip them to shreds. Izuku, along with Himiko Toga, would be going around finding more people like them. This group of people being Darby, Twice, and so forth. They would have found them across the 10 months, and they would be just a ragtag group of villains working together. The heroes have gotten word of just a small group of people committing calculated crimes across Japan. Well, not across Japan, but in the vicinity where Izuku and them would be. They would be stealing small amounts, just enough to get by, but this was enraging Izuku. He didn't want to just get by, he wanted them to live comfortable enough so that it doesn't look like they're struggling. He had decided, you know what? Screw it. One night he decided he would leave and then try to rob a bank. He would just go in. He would leave Himiko and the rest of the crew behind, going it alone, because he did not want to see any of them get hurt. He would go and find a small ATM of sorts, and he would have the dragon rip off the face of it so that he could collect the money. The money would be spewing out, and he'd pick it up all with the shadows, tossing it into a black bag. He would then quickly make his way back to the warehouse, but to his surprise, there were police. They had found them, but he was scared. His friends, he couldn't find them anywhere. He kept his distance to check, but he saw that the police found nobody, so he was happy. He was relieved to know that the people that he had grown to know over this 10 months were safe. They weren't getting taken away. So Izuku would try his best to look after them for the next 2 months of the 10 months training. Because remember, Izuku left school a month early, so it would be 9 months. It would be around the 9-month training period, and Izuku would be strong enough to fend for himself along with the others. He and them would just continue going on like this, but would abandon the warehouse this time. They would move a little further into the forest, and they would start up camp there. All the while, the League of Villains would have caught wind of this group of people who have been committing crimes. They would be willing to bring them in, and they would try their best to find these people. Kurogiri would be teleporting around everywhere, just trying to find them, and one day he would luckily stumble upon one of the group, this being Darby. Kurogiri would ask Darby to take him to the leader of their little group, and Darby would do so. They would soon arrive near Izuku, where Izuku, Toga, and Twice were. It was a group of 4. So they would arrive there, and Kurogiri would immediately walk up to Izuku, saying, "Hi, I'm Kurogiri. I'm with the League of Villains." And he would ask Izuku, "Would you like to join us?" Izuku would calmly reply with, "What's in it for us if we do?" Kurogiri would say, "A place to live, a roof over your heads, and no troubles at all." Izuku would think about this for a second, look at Toga, Twice, and Darby, and reply with, "Fine." They would soon go over to the hideout of the League of Villains, where they meet Shigaraki. Shigaraki told them, "Get ready." Well, Shigaraki introduced himself, and so did Deku and the rest of the gang. All For One had contacted Izuku and them via the TV that we've seen in the anime. So, Izuku would know about all For One. But he didn't trust him. He had a bad feeling about All For One. The dragon agreed. He smelt it. The darkness in him. It's unlike anything Izuku's felt before. But he likes it, because his entire life, since he came back that day from primary school, he'd been treated like a villain. The orphanage had abused him. The children had bullied him. Nobody would want to adopt him because of his quirk. Anytime somebody would want to adopt him, the people at the orphanage would say, "Are you sure? You do know he almost killed a kid once." Izuku wouldn't even try to defend himself, because he had told them many a times that it wasn't his fault. He couldn't control his quirk. But they wouldn't listen. They didn't care. All they saw was a villain. So Izuku followed the path that everybody set out for him by calling him a villain. This would be the change for Izuku. He would go on with the League of Villains, and they would just prepare a lot of stuff, and they would continue on like this. So Izuku would be working with Shigaraki and them, and they'd be planning on attacking UA. So they would be waiting and learning. They'd be watching. They slowly revealed to Izuku that they had a spy in UA. This would please Izuku because he saw one of his old friends, the person that he hated the most, Kachan. Izuku thought that he would finally get his revenge on Kachan for constantly nagging him and causing all of this to happen. If Kachan had left him alone, he could have become a hero with his quirk. But no, he wanted to know, he wanted to see. So Izuku would continue working with the League of Villains. And eventually the time would come for the USJ. Izuku and them would be gearing up. Izuku wearing what you see here in the thumbnail, and Himiko Toga twice, and Dabi wearing what they wear in the anime. So Izuku would, along with Shigaraki, step through first. All the other villains following in suit. Bakugo would look down and he would see that he knows one of them. He would yell from above, "What are you doing down there, Deku?" Izuku would calmly reply with, "What all of you guys told me to do, Bakugo. You all said I'm a villain, so here I am, a villain." Kirishima and them would be surprised that Bakugo knows this kid, and that he looks so young. Aizawa would immediately try running down to to fight the villains, and he would yell back to 13, "Look after the kids." Kurogiri would soon teleport up the stairs and would teleport the kids away to their respective areas. Aizawa would be dealing with the villains that were strong ahead, and the kids would be dealing with the villains in their respective rescue areas. Izuku would be standing there alongside Shigaraki. This is when Aizawa would have taken down most of the villains, and Shigaraki would have told Kurogiri, the Nomu, now! And Kurogiri would open a portal, bringing out the Nomu. The Nomu would charge in at Aizawa, and Aizawa would see it. He would fear this brute, the hulking brute of a beast that is the Nomu, and would try to avoid as many of its punches as possible. It was really hard, but he was able to avoid most of them, getting hit here and there, damaging him severely. Ida had still gotten away though, and he had made his way back to UA. All Might was already on his way, and he was furious that he let this happen. He thought that if he were there faster, sooner, that he could have done something. So All Might would be quite livid and angry at him not being there, him doing hero work and wasting all of his time. So he'd get there and he'd find that Izuku is, he'd find a lot of the kids fine, but some of them injured here and there, gentle injuries. 13 is severely injured, and Aizawa is battered and bruised. All Might would charge down, seeing the Nomu just beating Aizawa to a bloody pulp. All Might would charge down and start fighting the Nomu. All Might would start beating the Nomu. Slowly and slowly, they would have their all-out brawl like in canon, with All Might still coming out on top. This time, Kurogiri would have gotten back to Shigaraki and teleported him away. Izuku would say, take Toga twice and Dabi with you. I'm staying here. I've got a score to settle. Toga twice and Dabi would try to protest, but Izuku would say, I'll see you guys in just a bit. Remember, I've linked my shadow to yours. I can teleport to you whenever I please through our shadows. They would nod and would leave with Kurogiri. Deku would look at Bakugo, who had received one for all in this case. So Bakugo would be stronger. He'd come down and yell at Deku saying, "So you are a villain, I knew it." Deku would look at Bakugo and say, "No, I wasn't a villain. I wasn't planning on becoming a villain, but all of you kept hammering away at me being a villain. So I decided to follow your words and become a villain, Kachan." This threw Bakugo back, because ever since Deku was 4, after that day, he had stopped calling him Kachan. This scared Bakugo a bit, because he saw a dark, shadowy, smoky aura emanating from Izuku now. All Might had seen this, and he was nearing his limit yet again. All Might was surprised at how much danger he was feeling from this one kid. Izuku had attacked Bakugo and had shot shadow tendrils at Bakugo, grabbing him, throwing him around and beating him to a pulp. All Might had tried to get up behind Izuku and punch him, but this is when out of nowhere, Izuku's shirt was ripped in two, with a dragon shooting at All Might. This dragon was massive in size. It was about the size of a bus. The dragon was a solid, full shadow. It's not something that you phase through. It's quite literally a dragon. All Might was surprised at this because he thought the boy only had shadows. He thought All for One. This is when the dragon would yell out,
You stupid heroes. Because of you and that child over there, I was able to switch Izuku to the dark side. He wanted to be a hero, but everybody called him a villain because he couldn't control his power when he was 4. So I took advantage of that and swayed him to this. My power is equal to his. I am his quirk. I am the shadow dragon that protects and looks over him. I've looked after him. I've been there for him, unlike his mother and friends.
All Might would be thrown back by this. Hang on, sorry guys. That dark, grumbly voice taxes on my throat. All Might would be surprised by this, seeing that the kid had become a villain because of the circumstances, because of all of the constant bombarding that the people had given him. The dragon would attack All Might, and All Might would be surprised at the dragon's sheer speed and power. He would smack All Might to the side as if he was a dog. Well, not a dog, a play toy. Just throw him across the room. Bakugo and all the kids would be surprised seeing that this kid had a dragon that just slapped All Might to the side. Tokuyami would be afraid because he himself has a sentient quirk, Dark Shadow. But his quirk never did this. Izuku would yell out, hang on, I gotta think of a name for the dragon now. Akuma, meaning demon. He would yell out to Akuma to hurry up, we have to go. Akuma would retreat back to Deku's back and then would seemingly disappear. So the dragon would disappear back into Izuku's back. This is when Izuku would look over at Bakugo and tell him, You caused this, Bakugo, and I'm out for revenge. Out of nowhere, Izuku's shadow would rise up and wrap around him, and then Izuku would instantaneously disappear along with his shadow. He would then reappear in the League of Villains hideout, and they would ask him what happened. Izuku would tell them that he gave All Might a beating, and he got at least a bit of revenge for what the people had done to him all these years. All for One would be surprised at the power of this kid's quirk, and would ask him, what exactly is your quirk? Izuku would tell All for One, my quirk is a shadow dragon. All for One would say, but, sorry for that voice crack, I'm still suffering a bit from puberty, even if I'm 15, I'm still suffering. All for One would be pleasantly surprised. He would say, I thought you only had a shadow quirk. Izuku would say that his quirk stems from the dragon. The dragon's made completely out of shadows, but he can control shadows as well. Hang on, I'm quickly gonna whip up a photo of the dragon itself. Just give me a second. No, wrong one. Here we go. Here, this is basically the dragon. Just imagine it more dark and black. Or if you really want to, you can imagine something like this beast, just black. But I personally prefer this one. So, All for One would be thinking on taking Deku's quirk, but he wouldn't get the chance at all. Because Izuku knows that this man can't be trusted and plans on double-crossing All for One down the road. Izuku would tell Shigaraki that now they're wanted, they're gonna be looked for, so they're gonna split up. Izuku told Toga and them that if they want, they can stay here and be safe, or they could go with him. He would return much later on, but he wouldn't be returning anytime soon. He needs some time to himself. Toga would say that she would go to the ends of the earth with Izuku, no matter what. Darby and Twice would agree. They would all just leave the League of Villains for the next 3 months. Izuku would have gone back to the old abandoned factory that was once his and found what he had stored. This being the stolen money from the ATM. He would hand them the money and tell them, go get yourselves something nice. They would go out and buy themselves new clothes. When Darby would return, Izuku would tell Darby, Toya, and Twice. Darby and Toya is the same person. If you read the manga, I saw that crap coming. I low-key saw that coming. Anyway, Izuku would see Darby, Twice, and Toga returning after an hour of shopping. Toga would have come back with 2 bags and a little box. This box being a box of donuts for Izuku and the crew. So Toga would hand one of the bags to Izuku, telling him that your clothes got torn. I got you a new pair. Izuku would smile at Toga and just give her a hug, seeing as she's one of the only people that's ever cared about him. Well, besides his mother before the quirk accident. Izuku at this point completely despises his mother, and she's felt bad ever since that day. A week after she had abandoned Izuku, she had realized her mistake. One small thing from a 4-year-old that can't control his quirk, and that's how she reacted, all because of a warning from a doctor. She felt quite terrible now, and she asked Bakugo to give Izuku a message, but Bakugo told her that he couldn't. Inko asked why not, and Bakugo said, well, he's a villain now. Inko looked down and surprised at this. She asked him, are you sure it's Izuku? Bakugo said yes. He told me that because of all the things that the people, him and everybody else had told him about his quirk being villainous, he had decided to join the villains and fulfill their words. Inko shattered at this because she quite honestly believed that if she had not given up Izuku, he wouldn't have gone down this road. And she was right. If she had kept Izuku and just told him, it's okay, we'll solve this problem together, Izuku would not have gone down this road. But because of her stupidity, Izuku has now become a villain. Anyway, so Izuku would be in the warehouse with them, and he would walk up, and he would tell Darby to come sit down in front of him. Darby would do so, and Izuku would wrap shadows around Darby. Everybody was confused at this, Darby asking Izuku immediately, what are you doing, Izuku? I thought we were friends. Izuku would calmly reply with, we are, that's why I'm doing this. The shadows would tighten around Darby's arms and all of his burnt parts. Then, a few minutes later, disappearing off of Darby's body. Darby looked down and saw that his scars, they were all gone. The burnt parts of his body, they were no longer there. He looked at Izuku and asked what the hell he did. Izuku simply replied with, he used the shadows to drain all of Darby's injuries away. Darby was shocked at this, but he thanked Izuku. He was happy. He no longer had to suffer from the pain of cremation. Toga would run up to Izuku and just hug him, saying that he's the best. Izuku would look at Toga and say, I'm not sure about that. Izuku and them would go on for the next month, just doing petty crimes. So they would just be stealing small amounts of, well, they'd be stealing quite a large amount of money and stuff like that. All the while, heroes chasing them. Every now and then, they would encounter a hero and would badly injure him, but never kill. They haven't gone as far as to kill yet. Izuku and them would constantly be getting stronger, and their word would be spread. A 4-man team. A girl, a boy, a girl, 2 boys, and then a masked man. Everybody thought that these 4 was not that dangerous, but as soon as the word spread that one of the 4 had actually injured All Might in one of the fights, everybody feared. They did not know what power this child hid beneath him if he could injure All Might. Everybody was careful in the area around Izuku and would be fearful of this group. Izuku and them had decided to leave the League of Villains. They had returned back and told Shigaraki that they would not be joining the League of Villains again. Shigaraki was ticked off at this, but he couldn't do anything. All For One as well could not do anything because, well, he was still recuperating from the last fight. He would love to have Izuku on their side for the next attack, but he personally thought he could not stop him at this point. He is still too weak and wounded. Deku had gone and he quite literally attacked the news station and had gone on the air, on news, telling all of them that all villains that are looking for a safe space, come find us. We'll be at this point. All the heroes saw this as they just gave away their base's hideout. But what they did not know is this was just the front. Izuku had this small shack down at the pier, which he had set up to meet a bunch of villains. The heroes in the area were just presently surprised at how stupid they thought this child was, giving away his location like that. And they would try to catch him next time. Okay, so guys, if you did like this, I'm not one of those YouTubers that legitimately just go like, oh, okay, for the next part, hit me with 10 likes. No. If you want to subscribe, go for it. If you like my content, thank you very much. I do enjoy doing this. I'm not doing this for the money or for anything like that. I'm actually just quite enjoying myself. Because personally, I've been wanting to do stuff like this for quite a while now, and I just never had the courage up until now. I'm 15 and I am quite literally bored out of my mind because of COVID-19. So I will be trying to create another video within the next 2 days, but I might have to scale down because I quite stupidly made this before school. So like I'm starting school next week. So thank you guys. If you watched this, thank you very much. If you want to subscribe, again, go for it. If you want to like, do as you please. I'm not gonna say like and subscribe if you want the next this and this and this. I'm not that kind of person. So thank you all for watching and actually just being there and watching anime. I love the anime community, and we need to stand together because a lot of us just feel lonely in our own right. Thank you all and peace out.